technology doesn't replace trust, right? It just relocates it. You can do the work. You could believe in what your system produced. You can add all the automation that you want, but the real judgment and what's standing behind, especially in our business, what's standing behind what the output is the trust and the relationship.
Mark, welcome to the One Away Show.
What's up, Brian? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making time to do this. Mark, you've had a pretty amazing background, a notable Eagles fan, but I want to dive into your one away moment, trajectory changing, that helped you get to where you are today. So how would you answer that as the first question?
How I got into my space?
Yeah.
So it's funny. You started with the Eagles. Everything for me starts and ends with the Eagles in a lot of ways. Not in every way, but in a lot of ways. I was at an Eagles game, and this was the 2002 NFC Championship game, and the guy that was sitting in front of us, he had purchased seats from the guy that usually sits there, and he was in the title space, and at the time. I was just in my second year of law school, and he asked if I wanted to do some closings on the side and learn a little bit about the business while I was in school. And I did it. And that was kind of my entry. I always wanted to work for the SEC. I wanted to prosecute on Rule 10b-5, insider trading. I'm glad I didn't. Glad I didn't get, I never got a call back, never got an interview. My resume, I guess, didn't meet the qualifications, but I'm glad that it didn't.
Yeah, totally. And so this was just someone at the game. You start talking to him, and he goes, "Hey, title business," and you're like, "Yeah, I'll make some extra coin on the side." Like that. That was the spirit of it.
Pretty much, yeah. Like the long and short is basically that. Yeah, we lost the game, by the way. It was. Okay. Very depressing.
Yeah, I know the Eagles were heartbreakers before they were champions for a while.
Yeah, so. That was the second heartbreak. Yeah, that was the 2002 was the second straight NFC title game we lost. Was
this Donovan McNabb era?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, very, very familiar when I watched a ton of sports, so that sounds right. So you dove in, you were in law school. When you dove into the space, I'm just curious, you've been in the space for a significant time now and done some incredible things, but what were your early observations? Like when you dove in, what did you see? What kept you in it? I'm just kind of curious how you, your initial observations.
What did I see? So going back to the company that brought me in, I noticed really quickly that it's a lot of paperwork, right? And it's a legal connective, it's essentially the legal connective tissue to the real estate transaction, right? And it was so laborsome and burdensome with paperwork that it really needed to be tech enabled. And there were a couple things that I actually remember going into his office a couple times and saying, "Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And just trying to standardize and centralize and apply technology, across the broader spectrum of the way that we do things in title. And I came into the industry before really there was any automation, before there were any third party applications that can enhance and perfect your ability to not only clear title, but to facilitate the escrow reconciliations and handle recording, and all these things had to be manually done. And I got in right as tech was starting to become something, right? As you're talking about right after the .com boom. Right. So 99, and, I'm in title end of 2002, 2003, 2004 is when I was starting to get my feet wet.
Yeah. So just, it sounds like you were thinking about, you were observing things and you were saying, hey, I see this technology wave happening over here. we're doing things this way, but oh, maybe they could be done another way, and bringing this into the person you were working for as you started to gain insights on what could be possible.
Yeah, in many ways, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what made you start worldwide? It seems like this has been a rapidly growing company, but what was the ambition from, okay, I have this firsthand experience, so I'm going to go out and start my own business?
So, like I said, with the manual, intensive, laborsome type of work it was, we're also in a very fragmented business, and it's still very fragmented. That has not been relieved in many ways. However, with that fragmentation comes a lot of opportunity, and I saw that, and I saw it from from the legacy companies until now. I mean, the industry has changed night and day. And I just saw the ability to bring technology in and do it a little bit differently. Obviously, when I first got started, what's the right way to put it? Doesn't always go as expected in the beginning. Like you think you're going to bring all these great things, but there's certainly some growing pains, especially when I was still very young and immature when it came to running a business. But the one thing that I did right was I treated people correctly, and I instilled a very good culture from the onset. And honestly, my first employees are still with us today. So there's something about that holds true.
Yeah. Well, it's I think awesome. I mean, title in many facets is such a people-driven business built on trust. But what I think is so interesting. I've been reading some of your writing on Forbes and just broader other podcasts you've been on, and it seems that you're writing a lot on the automation and some of the things that you saw initially, AI in the world that we're going to, and perhaps how it can fix the fragmentation. But at the end of the day, your industry is built on trust. And I'm just curious, like, where does that lens come from, and where do you think it's going in terms of importance when people are looking at this technology and thinking everything can be automated?
That's a very insightful question, actually. You read the articles that I post online and the other things that I do, and everyone's talking about technology and MCP servers and wire fraud and all this stuff. It's like title insurance at the end of the day it's fundamentally a promise, right? Insuring against what could go wrong with someone's claim, someone else's claim to their new home. So that reframes what's a transactional business into a trust business, at the heart of it. So, if you think about it, you use the word lens. My legal training essentially is supposed to give us the judgment lens, if you will, and then you come at an operator role, which gives us the system lens, and you combine them, and that's the human expertise layer that we have, that no matter what has to be on top of the technology that you put into your company and build around systems and departments and so on and so forth.
Yeah, totally. When you talk about, this might be an interesting cultural question. You talk about the early employees that came in. You said some of these people are still with you. Sounds like you're soldiers in many ways. How by building a culture internally on trust, how is that reflected externally as it shows up with home buyers, people who are doing commercial deals? Kind of how do you think about culture, not just internally but then externally, as that relates out to touch points, and are you doing anything specifically with values and principles, or just at an organizational level, to ensure the consistency is there?
Our core values are written on the wall. Unfortunately, not every employee is in the office, but I've post-COVID. but our core values are on the wall. They're important to us. One of our core values that one of our employees that's been with us for a long time, created the phrase client focused. Not that other companies aren't client focused, obviously, they are. But being client focused is the important thing. And when you think about being focused on your client and our employees, it instills a relationship. Those relationships grow strong. And I think, culturally, that's always been very important. I'm not sure if that's answering the question, but, I think about being client focused, and I think about treating people the right way. And I think together they create a good culture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think too that scale at the level you have, and making sure that is bulletproof. So those values are exhibited externally. It all reflects back to you. So it sounds like you've laid a lot of groundwork or foundational work, so people know how to behave and act and show up in the field. So a question for you, Marc. There's a lot of mom and pop title shops out there. I mean, a dime a dozen. I mean, everywhere. I think there are much fewer that have scaled at the level that you have. So I'm curious, are you the kind of person you're going to do something and you're going to go full throttle and this was the vision, I got to scale it, or was it more over the years, just kind of one step at a time and you've built to what you have? So I want to understand the reason for the level of scale that you've been able to build and how you've gone about it.
So first, you grow or die, right? And in many ways, it's as simple as that. I remember vividly having a conversation in my office. I don't know, 2010 through 2000, maybe 14, somewhere around there. We were just continued to grow rapidly, and you do right by a client, you do well for a client. You meet expectations, you exceed expectations, you keep people happy. What does it mean? It means referral business. It means repeat business. It means more business. More business means more people, more employees, more office space, more computers, more technology. More technology, gives you more capacity. More people gives you more capacity. What does that mean? More clients. You do things right by them, more referrals. The business grows. If you resist that growth, you die. Simple as that. I don't have a better answer. There were many conversations, like I said, that I had about whether or not I wanted to grow it, because there's something very nice. Nice is probably not the best word to use, but something very nice about being a mom and pop shop, like a smaller company that's, doing things regionally and not nationally, doing things for local, and not, all over the Northeast or the US. And there's something endearing and fun and stable about that. It wasn't in the cards for us. I think we did so well for so long that growing was the only option.
Yeah. I love the quote, opportunity handled well leads to more opportunity. And it sounds like you succeeded on expectations that supported that growth and gave you a reason in the market to keep down that path. So
sure.
Yeah. So on that note, I mean, it sounds like you said, no, we didn't really have another choice but to grow, and because of the work and quality. When you contrast where you are now with maybe where you were when you look at others who are a bit smaller in the space, when you see what the advantages maybe that you have now, how does that differ from when you were smaller? What are things that you can do today that you couldn't do back then just because of sheer size and scale?
Yeah, another great question. There's nothing that a smaller company can't do. It's just a matter of capacity, I think. And I think that because over the last really not anymore, but for a few years I called myself, instead of CEO, I was the chief executive officer. Instead of that, I called myself chief eliminator of keystrokes. I just wanted to take a lot of the manual stuff within the business and move it to, automation. And nowadays we're putting AI behind everything. So, when you think about that and you think about like a smaller company, I have the ability to be able to, not just because I'm tech enabled and, tech forward thinking, but because I have the capacity, because we've got a really good team and a really strong team and, a really big team. I can make myself, I can give myself the time to be able to lean into certain things that are going to help us a year from now, 2 years from now, and start building things on the side that inevitably the industry will have, a couple years from now, but we're going to have them first.
Yeah. No, for sure. And you can probably maybe afford to make certain decisions that are riskier, just because. But I mean, I like what you're saying is, I've been in the industry, I have 20 plus years of experience seeing this industry unfold. I can probably see the future a little bit or a lot of it. And because of that, I can bridge the gap given technology that's coming out. So, I mean, a question on that is, it sounds like you're good at spotting opportunities and then like unbundling the individual pieces, right? And then bringing a systems level of thinking and approach to solving those problems. At a macro level, my question for you is, like, where is the title business in 5 years? Like, what do you foresee, and then how are you skating to the puck to get there?
It's a question I've answered a few times and over the years, and I continue to harp on the fact that what I see in the future, the utopian, Marc's utopian view of real estate transactions is buyer and seller, agent, escrow officer meet in a cloud-based portal, right? Which exists today. It's not like a new thing, but in a secure way, and everything is done within that cloud, within that portal. So the money is exchanged, wire instructions are exchanged, so it's in a safe, secure environment. The title information is exchanged. But the catch now is, based off of what's happened over the last couple of years, is it's going to be done through what is essentially, a model context protocol, like, server, MCP server, where agent to agent networks will drive the transaction soup to nuts all the way through. A transaction will get started by whether it's an agent, attorney, or a lender, right? And the information will come into the system. Their agent will talk to our agent. Our agent will facilitate, populate a title commitment. The other agent will see the title commitment. We will clear the requirements that are listed on title commitment. The proper exceptions will be identified. The closing will then be scheduled agent to agent. And then the signing would all be a RON signing, which is a remote online notary signing right there on the portal again. So the buyer shows up to the portal, signs in, dual authentication, maybe biometrics. They sign in, and the closing is facilitated by still a third party. The money then changes hands right then, automatically. Right, the money's probably faster than a wire in the future, and the account's reconciled. The deed and the mortgage go on record automatically to the county clerk's office. The policy is instant back to the buyer and the lender's hands, and the transaction is over. And then everything is then recorded right there. All the documentation's right there. And if you ever needed to go back and grab it for whether you're an accountant or you're, for your tax filing, or for, you were going to sell the home in the future, and for whatever reason, they needed information from that, it's all right there in the portal, easy to find, in a secure environment.
First, I like Marc's utopian view of where the world's going. It sounds very frictionless and seamless. if you were to contrast that for those maybe that don't know your space, the inside and out as well as you do, like in the simple terms, like how does the industry operate today? That is clearly not that.
No, but it's like we're getting close. I mean, we're not there, but we're not as far as I think people think. I think it's going to happen. I'm not sure if I'll still be in the business at that point because again, this comes down to the fragmentation. The fragmentation in the business is really it's vital to this conversation because if you think about Pennsylvania, for instance, this is where I live. I live outside of Philly. 67 counties and something close to like 2,000 municipalities. Every municipality does things differently. So until there's some sort of like consistency or gathering of something more stable across all fronts, where everything can be done in everything can be synchronized. You really can't get to that point. Now, that being said, your question is like, how are things done right now? Well, there are some integrations. We have the type of utopia integration in many ways with some banks where a lot of this is now capable. We're capable of doing that, but not all banks. And, that's also not being the cooperation within the real estate community is not there. Like the real estate agents aren't on these portals and the buyers and sellers aren't necessarily desiring to have to sign into something, right? Even though it's better for them, it's more secure. It just hasn't become like prevalent. It's not something that's, it's available today and we can do it as a if we were starting the Brian and Mark country or the Mark and Brian country right now, and we're third world right now, we're creating like a new record system and a new way of exchanging. We're trying to have a capitalistic economy, right? And we're trying to create a free market where you can purchase and sell property, right? But people have property rights and they're able to own land. Well, to be able to instill a system and put a system in place right now from a third world country would be a lot easier than changing what is essentially the United States and all the different ways of doing things within each state.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think the visual though that you're talking about is getting all the parties on one platform in a way that's frictionless doing business. I think that really stands out and is sticky from a visualizing perspective. So to your points, it sounds like a matter of adoption and time until that reality is more frequent. So
yeah.
So I want to go back to the personalized layer, right, of this. So as you think about automation and you think about the systems that need to become more frictionless and just all parts of the industry that need an overhaul, at a human level, right, and a trust level of your agents out in the field and at closings, like where do you believe the industry needs to preserve its inherent value that is exclusive of technology?
The core argument is like a scarcity flip. I mean, for most businesses, you're talking about technology and how technology changes the business. Is that where you're going with this?
So from the people side of the business, right? Like, what do you think is important to preserve at the human capital level when many things around the business, you see a world in which a lot of things can continue to be automated?
Relationships. I mean, the relationships are still like, the relationships are what controls everything. We're still a very relationship-based business, and I think that at the heart of it, technology, technology doesn't replace trust, right? And you used the word trust earlier. It just relocates it. And I think that what?
No, go ahead.
No, I mean that and that's what you can do the work. You could believe in what your system produced. You can add all the automation that you want, but the real judgment and what's standing behind, especially in our business, what's standing behind what the output is the trust and the relationship, and is it correct? And obviously it needs to be correct. And that's why, like, when it comes to automation, you need to make sure you've got the proper quality control. When it comes to technology, you have to make sure you have the proper quality control and so on and so forth. But the fact that AI can generate a clean looking title commitment in my business, for those that don't know what a title commitment is basically it's the standard document that says this is what needs to happen in order to have clean title, and these are going to be the exceptions to that clean title. AI can generate that, like, in minutes, sure. But, the question that every client, lender, underwriter, agent, buyer, seller, whatever, who's standing behind this, and who's standing behind that signature, who's standing behind that guarantee, and the accountable human that's behind it, and what trust actually means there from an automation point. And I would say, like, that automation and the AI components behind title right now, it raises the value of the trust rather than lowering it, because things are being done more efficiently, but it doesn't replace the actual trust. You follow me?
Yeah. Well, I think you said it so well. You said tech relocates the trust, but it doesn't replace the trust. And
yes.
Yeah.
It relocates it to it. Like when we do things manually, like you're doing things over and over and over and over again, but it's still human that's looking at it. We're using our judgment. We're having a phone conversation. Hey, can we do this? Can we do that? No, you can't do this, but if you give me this, we can do that. This is like, in a broader way, a general way of trying to essentially negotiate how to provide clean title, right? There's certain things that you can do within title based on the underwriting standards, where you can insure over something. You can get an exception on something. You can provide some sort of affirmative coverage when it comes to something. But nowadays, because of automation, a lot of that's being done automatically, right? So what it does is it takes that trust factor, that relationship factor, moves it to the end. That signature is the trust. There still needs to be that quality control. We still need to believe what we're getting is going to be there's someone standing behind it, right?
Yeah, I think it's great. And one of the things that you're talking about, as the conversations unfolded, I get the sense, and I have a follow-on question to this, but I get the sense we're talking about automations and efficiencies that feel that they're happening more at the back office level, or the things that are making the business more efficient. But we're talking also about how your relationship is, your industry is very extremely relationship and trust driven, which means your agents, they're the ones out in the field. They're the one, with home buyers and mortgage companies, and they're, people that drive the referrals. So my question to you, based on the conversation that we've had, what are, in your eyes, agents asking for, or what do they need per se to build more trust and accelerate the trust that they build, and what's available to them because of technology today?
An agent, you mean like a real estate agent, or
no, a title agent?
What's available to us today?
Well, essentially saying, we're talking about technology and efficiencies and how you're using it to kind of make the industry just operate more efficiently. But I don't want to. I assume that their agents are looking at where the world's going, and they're saying maybe there's opportunities to accelerate the trust I'm building right in the market to drive more referrals. What do you see as the opportunities in the next wave for the title agents in the field to accelerate trust within their markets?
Well, I mean, AI is obviously like the biggest thing that we're leaning into it heavily. But and AI can remove a lot of the friction that I talked about before, the errors and the delays and things with the counties, and obviously, like when it comes to the on the ground relationships, speed is very important. That type of efficiency and that type of friction removal, I guess, if you will. It certainly can enable the feeling of a better promise of something that's more efficient of the closing, but the closing can be done more quickly. Although that being said, I don't know that every buyer wants to sign a contract to move into their new property right away anyway. But at the end of the day, Brian, the closing table is still like an emotional place, even though not all closings are done at the table. There's a lot of remote things done. It's still an emotional place. It's still, we can automate our way there. We can automate our way to the closing table without automating the reassurance, right? And like if we can do that, we're doing really good things. And that people just want to see more efficient. People want to see a more efficient way of doing things. And if we can build, ways of making ourselves, faster and stronger, that's where the AI comes into.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I mean, look, it's super helpful to kind of just hear your lens, and also, I mean, I guess the follow-up question I want to ask on that is, let's just say technology aside, in terms of like AI and where you can get more efficient. You said the closing table is still an emotional place. I think it's beautifully coined. What are your agents? How do you advise new agents, let's just say, coming into worldwide land transfer, right? Let's just say you have 5 up and coming stars that you see, we're driving a lot of early results, and you're like, wow, these are individuals worth betting on their future. How do you coach them up, train them to go build relationships and do things that separate them from the rest? What would you say to that?
Probably my shortest answer is that learn the business and create relationships. I think you used the word relationships already in the question, so I hate using it in the answer. But relationships are relationships. This is still very much relationship-based business in a lot of the home buying side of things, not necessarily in the refi and the high volume lending side. But it is a relationship-based business. Learn the business, know what you're talking about, and sustain relationships.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's easier said than done, but to your point, yes, sounds like you have a good way of operating the business to ensure they can fulfill on the things that you're doing. So, okay, here's a question I have for you. What's a belief that you had 10 years ago with complete conviction that you've changed your mind about today?
That's really an easy one. If you look on my website, if you look at our company's website, I used to say all the time that blockchain and crypto were going to be more heavily leaned into and utilized within the title space or within the real estate transactional space, and they're just clearly not. There have been attempts to bring blockchain into the county clerk offices and trying to fix some of the fragmentation that we talked about. And, there are still a lot of efforts at doing so. And will it happen? And will blockchain make the industry better? At the end of the day, I think yes. But it's just not being adopted, whether it's, a financial thing, investment thing, or just, each county has their own elected officials, and each state, each has multiple counties, and that's your fragmentation. And I just don't think it's happening as fast as I thought it was going to happen. And at the same degree, I thought that crypto would penetrate the real estate buying world, and it clearly has not. And there really isn't much of a desire, even though you see articles here and there about, oh, this company's accepting crypto, or this. No, they're not. They're just exchanging it right before the closing into fiat money, and that doesn't count.
Yeah. Do you think that is because of the profile of people in the title industry versus like where the crypto brand kind of comes from, or do you think it's we're just not ready to fully adopt, and maybe it's 10 more years out? Like what's the reason being that you believe it hasn't caught on?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just not a frictionless business, and I think that has a lot to do with it. The wire, cyber liability and security when it comes to crypto is obviously something that the insurers can't get behind. You have to keep in mind that at the end of the day, we are selling an insurance product, even though we are facilitating a closing and moving money. Part and parcel with that is the title insurance that's being obtained by the buyer. And with that title insurance comes, in most cases, in most states, what is a closing protection letter. A closing protection letter, CPL in short, is basically certifying that the funds are going to be moved in accordance to the lender's closing instructions, or in accordance to the attorney and the wire instructions that they provided between buyer and seller and bank and payoff, and the outgoing lender and the new coming lender, and all the different liens that need to be paid off. That's all being ensured that it's going to be done correctly. Well, you add crypto into it, it opens up a whole new spectrum of worries and concerns and volatility. And I use the word volatility like really strongly, in that, crypto is volatile. And if you're exchanging a property for $500,000, and the seller, is expecting, at the end of the day, after the payoffs and all this stuff, $380,000, and the buyer's paying in crypto, and that crypto, loses value between the time that it was sent, from the time that the title company converted it. Now all of a sudden there's a shortage, right? Now you and I are probably smart enough to know that there are ways around that. There are ways to facilitate a buyer with crypto and have the proper affidavits and shortfalls, and the buyer can still pay whatever shortage if there's any volatility, and that can be dealt with. That being said, the industry is still nervous, I feel, about that, and I think that it's no different than there's other areas there's other problematic areas within the title space that the title space essentially leans away from. And this just happens to be one of them right now. Still new, still hotly contested on whether or not it's going to, penetrate. There are companies that do it. I mean, if a buyer was adamant about using crypto, I mean, we would find a way to do it. It's just a matter of moving the funds and changing, changing it to dollars and making sure the buyer is covering the shortfall.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I do think, to your point, it even to people who are sophisticated in tech in other areas, crypto can be foreign at times. And so it seems like there just needs to be more broader spread adoption and education at large. And so, but I think your vision for how it can make the experience smoother could hold true. But it seems like we have ways to go in terms of it's instilling itself at the forefront of how transactions are done. So yeah, really appreciate your foresight there. Question on this note, we've talked a lot about AI. We've talked a lot about how you're thinking about integrating it and evolving it across your entire business. Let's just say all the institutional knowledge in your company disappeared tomorrow, and you could take one piece of information that you felt was the most valuable to your organization. What would you bring along with you, and why?
So if all of our technology disappeared and we had to bring something into the future, what would we bring?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. So no data. We've got no data. I guess if I had to choose one thing, it's funny, we've been talking about, we have something like 25 million emails over the last 7 or 8 years, right? 25 million emails. across shared inboxes, single inboxes, so on and so forth. We've been slowly digesting the 25 million emails and building an LLM around all of what it contains. I would probably want to make sure that we keep the emails.
Because it sounds like what you're saying is I want to build an organizational knowledge layer that multiple stakeholders could tap into.
There's just so much institutional knowledge that you can obtain. If I didn't know anything about title and I just tried to teach myself via the LLM that we would create from the 25 million emails, I probably can teach myself more than I know now. So,
yeah, for sure. No, it makes sense. I've been talking to this individual who running a company. He ran like the agentic AI side at Amazon and sold his first company. Anyways, started another business where he's basically helping organizations build knowledge layers, right? So multiple people can tap into all that, what you're saying, millions of emails and files, and making that easily documented. And anyways, I find that fascinating, right? Because there's so much expertise inside of that. And I think you're right. Like that's a massive asset that can carry forward. So
it's absolutely, yeah.
I could let me ask you something a bit more industry specific. I was listening to one of the podcasts that you went on, and you were talking about you've seen a bit of a commercial boom. Obviously, we're waiting for inventory to open up, interest rates to come down a bit to open up on the residential side. When interest rates eventually do drop, how are you prepared for that moment, and what are you doing now to kind of get in front of the wave that might be coming in the next year or two?
First of all, wishful thinking that rates are going to drop. I don't know what's going to happen. The war's hopefully now over, and oil prices might lower, so transportation gets easier and inflation eases, and perhaps now like it's a job issue, but based off the job numbers, there's still very high employment. And the stock market's booming, and right now rates aren't going to go down. I will tell you, if rates go down, we're ready. So like I'm never worried about that. That's the most automated part of our business. When it comes to we work in 4 different buckets. We've got our commercial department. Commercial is obviously very strong right now. We talked about that. Our partner side of things, we run a lot of joint venture partnerships where we open up a captive, we open up a vertical upstream business for whether it's a developer builder or a real estate brokerage or a bank, and then we help manage their title company. We've got our regular title office that facilitates work with buyers and sellers and institutional mortgage lenders and anybody that needs title insurance. And then we've got our institutional department that does high volume integrations. And that's the one department. If the rates come down, that department is just it's plug and play, and it just gets turned on. So like when you think about it, like it's the one area of our business that when you're talking about staffing up, we don't need to staff up on that side of things as much as we needed to in years past, because of a lot of the AI enablement and because of a lot of the automation that's been added to it. It's been like that now for years. It's pre-AI. I mean, 2016, 17, we leaned heavily into automation and being able to integrate via, yesterday's MCPs or, APIs. And, so if rates come down, I would welcome that, and that would be awesome. I just don't think it's happening anytime soon. And, I guess, like I said, wishful thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's gonna happen immediately, but just I have to imagine there's going to be a next couple of years. I've just been reading a lot of economic factors, so yeah, maybe before the end of the decade, it's in our future. But to your point, probably not anytime in the immediate future. But no, I appreciate your perspective. It sounds like you've positioned your business and put structure around it in a way, not only for being prepared for that moment, but being also structured to thrive in the world that we're in today. So need to see how you parsed it out.
The world's an interesting place right now. People talk about AI and jobs and whether jobs are going to be displaced, and what's going to happen with that. And I've got opinions about all of that. But like the reality is that this is all still so new. I heard someone talking about the other day that we're still at the Atari stage of AI, and we're going to be at PlayStation. I think this was on the All In podcast. They were talking about they're going to be we'll be at the PlayStation 10 phase within 6 months. So like that's how fast things are happening. We're not going to really know how things are going to shake out until you know we get further upstream, and we kind of we get into the crux of some of the developments of what AI actually brings to the table, not only in my industry but in all industries. And I look forward to seeing what happens. But I said, and you commented when we spoke before, like one of the articles that I wrote, about people and people being displaced. And I don't think that AI is going to displace people in my industry the way that some people do. I think that there's going to be capacity that opens up, and I think that there's certain departmental changes that will be altered. But at the heart of it, people and their judgment skills are still going to be needed, and the output needs to be authentic. And if the output is constantly AI, what ends up happening is the AI learns from itself over and over again. And in some ways that works. But if it makes a mistake and it learns from the mistake and then it learns from that mistake and it keeps going and you let it just go haywire and continue to hallucinate, AI is not perfect, and machines aren't perfect. You need to have that judgment behind it.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing I'd say is thinking about your space. I agree with you, especially in the title space. I think there are going to be capacities that opens up at operational level and in the field because of what people can now do. But I mean, given your business compared to other business is so trust-led, relationship-led, it'd be an exciting time as a agent out in the field and what's possible. So at least the way I think about it. So it sounds like you're thinking in a similar lane.
It's funny because you use the word trust again, and we're talking about AI and we're talking about how everything's going to change. And, it actually brings up like there's like this paradox. I was talking to somebody the other day about this. And it's the better the machines get and the better the AI gets, right? The better that learning is, and the faster we get to PlayStation 10, if you will. In my industry, at least, the more you're forced to trust something that you can't fully inspect, and that confidence, there needs to be confidence in the output, right? And I talked about the output before. That output, there needs to be evidence of correctness, right? Right now, we have title agents that basically can make notes. We removed this because of this. We took exception because of this. We had a phone conversation, and this is what ended up happening. If the system delivers a wrong answer, you can't polish that. If my system, as of like a few years ago, delivers a wrong answer, there's a human judgment error that we made. We'd rather it be a human judgment error than an AI error, right? I don't know that our E&O would cover us for an AI error. That's why quality control is still the utmost, important thing here. And I talked about it earlier, when AI can generate a clean looking title commitment in seconds, it's a dangerous thing. And there still needs to be accountability though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I think I've been thinking a lot about our ability to, you said, I think, reason, but and have judgment, and our interpersonal skills. They're going to become that much more into focus over the next 5-10 years. And I do think the people who are creative and have, the ability to converse and think on their feet, more power to them, because they're going to use those same skills the way they're using the systems that have been put in front of them. So, Marc, this has been a joy. I love your thoughtful way of the questions you answered and just what you've shared today. What is the best way for people to get in your orbit?
To get in my orbit? I don't know. Just
To find you. Yes, correct.
Find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Marc with a C, Shaw, and then WWLT will do it, and you should be able to find me. And look forward to communicating with whomever's looking to get into the title space. Love to meet you. Love to talk. Love meeting new people and creating new relationships. So yeah.
Or maybe you'll convince someone at an Eagles game to join you.
Well, we can make them an Eagles fan.
They'd be at the Eagles game, but yeah.
Oh, if they're at the Eagles game, yeah. Well, if they're,
I was trying to bring it full circle here, but yeah.
Maybe in a few years when I'm ready to get out of the business, I'll bring somebody else in and they can, we'll do some mentoring. Absolutely.
Love it.